Okay, Packers sign the perfect undrafted free agent. Who is it and why is it the perfect signing for the Packers? I'm going to break that down for you guys in this video. Obviously, the Packers did not have a glaring need at the wide receiver position, hence why Brian Gutekunst didn't use one of his draft picks in this year's draft. And it was a very deep draft class of wide receivers. I really like the move by Brian Gutekunst by holding off until after the draft. And he does that, and he gets a big explosive target. Who is that target? It's Julian Hicks. Julian Hicks out of the University of Albany. Really like this signing for the Packers for a couple of reasons. And I'm getting into the reasons why, but I'm familiar with Julian Hicks. I live in Michigan, so he obviously started his career at Central Michigan and then transferred to Akron, and then for just one season. I think that was during COVID, and then he spent a couple of years with the Zips at Albany. There had a very successful 2 years, but especially last year. So once Hicks transferred to Albany, he suffered a season-ending ankle injury in his debut, and he finally got his chance to stand out in 2022, and he became a staple of the offense in his final 2 seasons. He finished those 2 seasons with 74 receptions for over 1,100, almost 1,200 yards receiving, 17 touchdowns, 11 of those coming last season, and almost 900 of those yards coming last season as well. Although he wasn't drafted, Hicks pre-draft testing was impressive. He listed just under 6'2", 201 pounds. He posted a 9.18 relative athletic score. His score was boosted by his excellent 3-cone time at 6.77. This guy he's just a standout athlete, and I love the pick for the Packers. I think he ran like a 4.6 in the combine. So when you start talking about we don't need just that extra, we don't need the help at wide receiving, but then again, we do, because here's the reason why. When you start talking about Christian Watson and his soft tissue issues, we had to lean into and rely on guys like Malik Heath last year, who is undrafted as well. And Malik Heath, he's a talent that can be overtaken. When we start talking about if Julian Hicks is that guy, if he is that specimen to come into the Packers squad and just kind of overtake it, because he's got the size that Matt LaFleur loves in wide receivers, and that is just over 6 foot, and he's a big body, big target. So when we start talking about who the Packers have in Green Bay, I mean, they don't lack for wide receivers, which is a very good problem to have when you start talking about Jordan Love and the guys that he's going to be targeting. Tight ends, we obviously know we've got Luke Musgrave, a guy that can stretch the field, a guy that can create separation. And then you've got Tucker Kraft. Tucker Kraft came in. He's like an all-in-one tight end. He does it all, right? He pass blocks. He run blocks if he needs to. He does a lot out there. So when we start looking at who is, in the Packer wide receiver room, we start talking about Christian Watson, a guy who's kind of rumored in, pre-draft as a potential draft trade bait. Okay. So Christian Watson is the Packers. If you had to determine who's the Packers' number 1 wide receiver, just because of his upside, you'd have to say Christian Watson. He's got the speed. He's got a lot of things going for him, but his reliable target, especially later on in the season, was Romeo Doubs. Romeo Doubs is one of those guys that is just, he's so reliable. And it seems like anytime, Jordan Love was, in trouble or whatever, and he had to buy himself some time scrambling, Romeo Doubs was creating a whole lot of separation. It seemed a lot of times that Romeo Doubs was open, and that was because Romeo Doubs is probably improvising, and the Packers need wide receivers like Doubs that can improvise, that can come back to the bulk, that can do a whole lot of extras. And Jaden Reed, rookie last year, sophomore this year, Jaden Reed, my personal favorite wide receiver for the Packers, just because he can do everything. And we start talking about Matt LaFleur's offense and him running, just jet motion, all that stuff. Jaden Reed is one of those guys that is certainly that guy that you got to get the ball in his hands. Again, Luke Musgrave is that guy as well, just because of his speed and how dangerous he is. But Jaden Reed, again, super dangerous guy. I don't see Hicks coming in here and overtaking Reed or anything like that. Even Dontavian Wicks. Dontavian Wicks was that target for Jordan Love. Seemed to be his favorite target. Seemed to be, there's always that wide receiver that gels and meshes with the quarterback, and Jordan Love and Wicks seem to be on the same page. Wicks, 5th round pick last season, is a big, good target for the Packers. 6'1". Okay. So Hicks is just over 6'2". Hicks is just a little bit bigger target than Wicks when we start talking about that. But a guy that the Packers brought in from Seattle last season was Bo Melton, 5'11", just under 200 pounds there. Another, fast target. When we start talking about wheels, this guy has wheels. Jaden Reed has wheels. Christian Watson has wheels. Bo Melton, I really liked Bo Melton. He had a 2-game showcase for the Packers and for us Packer fans, where he went out there and he just showed a whole lot. And then you got undrafted free agent Malik Heath, 6'2", 213 pounds. Very similar when we start talking about Julian Hicks, very similar in size, 6'2", and a good size, just around that 213-pound range. So Julian Hicks, is he going to be good enough to overtake Malik Heath on this 53-man roster? Time is going to tell, but that is such a great problem to have for the Packers when we start talking about the depth of this wide receiving room. So I love the fact, and I think this is a perfect signing for the Packers, because you need the competition in the room. You need the competition out there on the field, out on in training camp and all that stuff. And Julian Hicks is that perfect guy to go out there and push these wide receivers and make them better. If he doesn't make the team himself, he's going to push everybody to get better, because he is that good. He is certainly good enough to make a lot of rosters out there. So time is going to tell where this sits, but I really, really, really love this signing that Brian Gutekunst, added to the training camp contract. He signed 3 guys, 2 of them wide receivers. So again, adding depth is always a good thing to do, even if you don't need that position, because again, it pushes players to get better. It pushes players to just show leadership out there. And who knows what happens? Maybe Julian Hicks is that guy that the Packers look at and they're just like, you know what, this is good enough. This guy's good enough. Leave your comments. Let me know what you think. Do you think this guy's going to make the 53-man roster? Is he good enough to overtake Malik Heath on this roster? I'm really curious what you guys think. Go Pack, go.